Morning campers, how are you all this morning? I hope you're well. Oh, it's suddenly got really quite chilly. I've just checked, it's 8 degrees. I keep forgetting what the Fahrenheit is. 8 degrees C, which is about 48 Fahrenheit. Yeah, it just feels chilly. Suddenly it feels like, yeah, it's autumn. I mean, it's been autumn for ages, but you know, literally a couple of weeks ago I was sitting here in a shirt. Today I've got 5 layers on top. I can hardly put my arms down. I feel too fussy in so many clothes. I think that's one of the reasons I prefer summer. It's just boom, shirt and shorts, done for the day. Anyway, yeah, temperature's definitely dropped quite considerably, but it's about right for this time of year, so no complaints. Now, excuse me, I'm a bit bleh today. I've been banging on about how excited I was to have my 4 days in the garden, just the garden, nothing else, 4 full days. And that became 3 days because I had to deal with some other things. Those 3 days had become 2 days because yesterday I didn't come. I woke up in the morning. I felt rum. Oh my goodness. Nothing that I could completely put my finger on. My joints hurt, but then my joints hurt all day, every day anyway. Whatever the weather, whatever's going on, that's like a given. But when I got up yesterday, it was my muscles. My muscles felt so tender. And I felt a bit up here, you know, a bit sort of like, Anyway, so yeah, I think I've got a cold. It's so annoying, isn't it? Because, you know, obviously in the middle of this pandemic, we're all being super careful. I'm being really careful. But, you know, I have to go to the post office most days. I have to go to the shops, not just for myself, but other people most days. And no matter how careful I am, if someone comes right up in my face and is breathing on me, you know, even with my mask on. Anyway, yeah. So I think in an ideal world, I'd probably not be here today. And I was contemplating not coming today, but then I looked at next week's weather forecast and we've got a week of rain coming. So I want to get on with things today. I want to get on with planting things. You just have to excuse me if I clear my throat. I just feel really mucusy around the back. Look, I'm in the garden. There's no one else around. You know, I don't have the big C. I don't have any of those symptoms. I think I've just got an ordinary change of season cold. I'm not going to come into contact with anyone down here. If another gardener shows up, I'll keep them at distance. That's what we've all been doing on this site all year anyway, is keeping our distance. But yeah, I'll just warn people to stay even further back from me. Rats. Anyway, yeah, so my day at home yesterday wasn't a complete waste. I did another 4 hours of lavender processing, must take some home today. More tape removal from cardboard. I just kind of did a load of stuff, the kind of normal stuff I do when I'm indoors, so that the day wasn't a complete waste. All of my dried beans are now in the freezer, having their 3-day freeze to ensure that no bugs can hatch from them next year. I don't want that, whether it's my seed saving or my food beans. There's a mixture of both. So there's a whole drawer of the freezer at the moment. It's just full of jars of beans. Beautiful sight. So loads of little things like that done. One of the things I want to do today is, well, in the next few days, I'm going to do some planting in a minute. I was mentioning recently my turtle bags, and Paul wasn't sure what I meant. That's what I mean. I guess you call them string bags, wouldn't you? I call them turtle bags because there was a big campaign. That one just says eco on it. Yeah, there was a big campaign a few years ago. I suppose, excuse me, I suppose in a way it was the beginning of kind of trying to bring a consciousness about plastic to a wider audience. It's probably about 10 years or so ago. It was way before David Attenborough made his film about the plastic in our oceans, which I think was a couple of years ago. That's really, really triggered people. Anyway, a number of organisations were selling these, calling them turtle bags. The idea being that we use these for shopping to keep plastic bags out of our oceans and out of our turtles' stomachs, for goodness sakes. So yeah, who is it from? It just says Eco Cotton on this one. I'm sure, knowing what I'm like, I would have bought organic cotton as well. Anyway, so the reason these are here today is to put the onions into. Normally I would string them. By this time of year we'd normally be seeing me framed by my strings of onions. Not going to happen this year because I got them out of the ground so late that their tops had already crumbled to nothing. So I've got nothing to tie them in with. But these will do. So I'll be having turtle bags framing me for the rest of the winter, and remember to take some home. Okay, so let's get on with things today. It's time to do some autumn sowing. I'll start with garlic, and then I'm going to move on to broad beans, and I'm going to try a couple of different things this year with the broad beans to hopefully let me win against the mice. Yeah, well, we'll come on to that after we get the garlic in, but let's get cracking in that lovely bed that was prepared a couple of days ago that had the potatoes in. Oh, I do love the sight of a freshly prepared bed that's, you know, as I was saying on Facebook, it's a blank canvas to play with, isn't it? So, right, wrap up warm. It is chilly out there. Let's go planting. The garden feels so different this morning. There's a really, really heavy dew on the ground. This drop in temperature, yeah, it's like a switch. It feels like a totally different garden today. So the bed I prepared a couple of days ago. I'll keep the nets handy because once I've planted the garlic, they won't show initially, so I don't want cats and foxes scratching here, but also when they do show with their beautiful little sprouts, I do not want birds coming along and having a peck and thinking there's a free meal there for them. Now, my trusty straight line makers. Obviously, being a neat freak, I like a straight line. But, like I was saying the other day about things like this, there's a practical reason too. I know what a garlic sprout looks like, but even so, having things in a straight line means I can tell, hopefully, that's my veggie, that's a weed. So, oops, snaily. So yeah, I like to do my sowings, my plantings in a straight line, and also then the space between, it's far easier to mulch between some straight rows rather than if I sort of broadcast willy-nilly. I do broadcast some things, salads, chard, calendula, but most things go in nice organised rows. I won't have any mulch for this bed straight away, but putting those nets on will give it a little bit of protection from any of this pelting winter rain we're due. Right, now my previously divvied out garlic. Yum, 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 yum. Brilliant. I'm just going to lay them on the surface of the soil for now, so that I can stand back and make sure I'm happy with the spacing. Exactly as I would with onions and the like. I'm spacing them about 15 centimetres apart. I never get massive bulbs, but that's enough space for them to grow and hopefully do something half decent. I love this sowing each year, when so much of the garden is being ripped out, chopped up, composted. It feels wonderful, utterly wonderful, to be starting some new life. Oh. And then once they do sprout, their sprouts are the most beautiful, vibrant, almost acid green, when most of the other greens in the garden will be those darker hues of the brassicas. So it's lovely, utterly lovely, to have this gorgeous, shocking shade of green to see. But also it's that lovely thing of coming to the garden through the winter, or at least through the next few weeks, and having something to look forward to look for. Yay! Am I going to have enough? I did bring some spare, just in case. Obviously, over the years, I get accustomed to how many plants I can fit in a row of pretty much anything. This bed, I've got room for one more on each row. Ooh. This bed is slightly wider than all my other beds. Let me just tip you up so I can talk to you without bending over. There you go. Yeah, this bed, I'm often asked about my bed sizes. So I've got the 4 main beds. Width-wise, the width of my plot is 6 metres. So these beds are 6 metres wide by, I suppose you'd say long because it's the longer side. I think of it as width though because it's the width of my plot. So they're 6 metres by about 3.5 metres. This bed though is getting on for 4 metres. So finding a couple of spares, finding my best ones. So, so I've got the 4 main beds, approximately 3.5 metres by 6 metres. And then each bed is divided into my 5 permanent mini beds. So each one is either 3.5 metres long, 4 metres, around about that. 3.5, 4 metres long by about 1 metre wide. Some of them are more like 1 metre 10, metre 20. There's one over there that's more like 90 centimetres, so I'm going to try and rejig that this summer. But you know, it's not a huge amount of space, but it just shows, doesn't it, how, you know, it can be a really productive garden even in that fairly small amount of space. Right, get these 2 spares in. And, where have you gone? Now this row is ready to plant. I'm just going to bring you a little bit closer to explain how I plant them. So I like to pop my garlic in with a dibber because this little, the foot of the clove, that's where the roots are going to come from. it can be not exactly fragile, but we want to be sort of a bit mindful of not damaging it. So I don't want to just ram it in and it possibly hit a stone. Now the other thing is, I do tend to put my garlic in fairly deep, as in twice its own depth. Hopefully that'll give them a good start in terms of anchoring their roots before the shoots come out. Like I said, I don't want birds pulling them out. I also don't want them to throw themselves out of the ground. You'll quite often see that with your onions. But yeah, give them a nice cosy bed, get in there, nice little start for them. It's a beautiful job to do on a still autumn morning. Still as in no movement. Still as in, yes, it is still autumn, despite how chilly it got quickly. Just before I get this third and fourth rows in, I just want to show you something. So as I'm saying about when the shoots come up, how it's something lovely to look forward to seeing. Just behind, this is a row of my purple sprouting broccoli. They did have a net on them, but I nicked it to put on this bed to stop foxes and cats pooping in it over the last couple of days. Actually, I'm hoping to have all the nets off the brassicas today because there's no more butterflies. But this is what I wanted to show you. And this is what I love about the moment when the nets come off and having lovely things to look forward to seeing. The water has pooled in the leaf. I just think that's so pretty. All this heavy dew on the leaves. Absolutely gorgeous. I love how, oh look, that's such a pretty one, where these little pockets of water collect. Gorgeous. So yeah, brassica nets, they're coming off today, which also means I need to find stakes to start staking all these because they will go flying. Well, they'll end up across the path otherwise, but that's for later on. Meanwhile, come on Vivi, get back on with the garlic. Right then, time to do some broad beans. The variety I'm growing are, well, it's a bit of a mixture because it's my saved seed, and I've had two different types in the last 2 years, but they're basically Aqua Dulce Claudia and Super Aqua Dulce, the perfect autumn sown broad bean. Just to explain very quickly, I prefer to do my broad beans over the winter. A couple of reasons. One, I've got an empty bed, I've got a space for them. But two, the main reason is because it means I'm going to get an earlier crop next year, hopefully towards the end of May. Get that crop, get the bed cleared of broad beans, and then I can get another crop in. So that one bed will give me 2 crops rather than 1. Right, now, last year I had a little bit of an issue with mice. I sowed my lovely 4 rows, came back a couple of days later and there were holes all the way along the rows where the mice had been in and had the broad beans out. That top bed where they were last winter is very close to a couple of compost heaps on the other side of the main path, and it's where I often see mice running out from. Mice like to live in our compost bins, we deal with it. The number of times I've seen them coming out of that compost bin and Rusty pounce and get one, I've lost count. But he obviously can't keep on top of all the mice because they had the lot. So I did a bit of an experiment last year. I'm sorry, I've got a really itchy nose because I've just been cuddling the cats for a while. I think I'm allergic to cats. How ironic, but it doesn't stop me wanting to cuddle them. Anyway, so I did a bit of an experiment last year and I'm going to take that a step further this year. Now, ideally, to do an experiment, we want a control group where we don't do anything to that control group. Otherwise, we won't know what's worked and what hasn't. Also, in experimenting, normally you would only want to introduce 1 new factor to each group. I'm going to chuck the kitchen sink at these in a minute. But as far as the control group goes, I'll have to see how my seeds go. I don't have a huge amount because I didn't have a big harvest last year because of the mice. I ended up doing a 3rd sowing in the spring, much later harvest. They didn't come to much, so I saved just enough seed and obviously froze the rest for eating, and I've still got a few portions left. Yum, yum, yum. So the plan is this: if I've got any seed left over for my control group, I'm going to do 1 row out in an open bed that currently has tomatoes in, so I'm going to have to take all the tomatoes out first. The others I'm going to do in cells in the cold frame. Actually, they don't need to be in the cold frame, they can just be on the deck, they're hardy enough. So they'll be out on the deck, but for each bean sown I'm going to add a bit of chili powder, and I'm also going to wrap the whole thing in tulle, because when I used that technique to start the spring ones this year, the tulle, it seemed to have a good effect. However, that was in the cold frame. Maybe the mice just didn't find them in the cold frame, I don't know. So these are all going to be completely wrapped in tulle with a bit of chili. Or, if I've got enough seed, or I could do half and half. With my control row, what I'm thinking is to just plant the seeds with no chili, no tulle, nothing. But then half the row, I've got this kind of, this loo roll of a sort of a strip of tulle. What I might try and do is just cover half the row with the tulle. I'll have to anchor it all the way around really carefully, but to see if that will work in the open beds. We'll see how it goes. Now, the other thing to say about the chili, I did try it last winter, but I sprinkled it on the top of the planting holes, and of course the next day we had lashing rain. It washed it away, so it had no effect whatsoever. When I did peas in the cold frame, I put the chili on the top again, but of course being in the cold frame, that chili wasn't getting washed off. No disturbance whatsoever. So what I'm thinking for these is, right, let's just get on now. What I'm thinking is I'm going to shove my bean in about the equivalent of the depth of the bean again, and then I might need this out in a cup with a little spoon to do it, because I don't want to pour the whole packet in. And then in that hole, a tiny bit of chilli. Oh, I've got my spare compost down there. And cover it over. So the chilli is actually on the bean, if that makes sense. I've got no idea. Let's see. You know, actually, I'm thinking about it now in terms of a control group. I should have some seeds sown in cells on the deck as well. But I just don't think I've got enough seed to do all that. So the control group will be the ones out in the open bed if I've got enough seed. We'll see how it goes. So the other thing to say, sorry, this is why I was mentioning the bed that I did last winter being at the top of the garden and near those compost bins where the mice always appear. There's no room for you up here, Poppy. You can't quite see her, can you? She's just behind the tool. The bed they're going in this winter, because I rotate, is this furthest away from that bin possible. It's right down next to my herb bed. So again, it's not going to be the most ideal control, because otherwise I'd do it in the same bed that I'd done it in last year. Well, you know what? We'll get some clues, won't we, about how efficacious or not these methods are. Yeah, let's see in a couple of weeks or so, 3 or 4 weeks, if these are sprouting. The other thing about getting them going at this time of year is there's just about enough warmth in the soil. Oh my God, Rusty's going to jump up now too. Oh. There's just about enough warmth in the soil still. We've got enough daylight hours to get them going. They don't really need protecting over the winter in terms of, say, fleecing. I don't think I've ever fleeced my broad beans. He's scratching the tool. I've never had to fleece my beans over the winter. I do, though, leave the Enviromesh net tunnels over them, just so things don't peck at them, birds in the winter, etc. And I think over the years what I found is that little bit of protection from the Enviromesh just stops the worst of the harsh winds, cold winds hitting them. It's just enough. So yeah, they will be grand over winter, just as they are. Right, let's chat. More poking of... What is that lump in the compost? Oh, the other thing to say, just very quickly, I know, just one more thing. I was thinking, I don't want to do it like this because it means buying more compost, I don't really want to buy any more compost yet. Then I thought, well, you daft beggar, Vivi, because all this compost, it's not like it's going to be wasted by just sitting in these trays. Of course, when the plants are ready to plant out, that compost is going to be added to the garden. Oh, and on that note, in terms of planting these out, I will try to plant them out as soon as possible. In other words, let them sprout. The main reason for doing it this way, in the cells, under the tool, etc., is just to give them a chance to germinate before the mice steal them. So once they've germinated, once they're up, once they're a decent size, maybe I can see some roots out of the bottom, then I'll just get them into that bed pronto. I don't want to leave them in the cold frame or on the deck over the entire winter. The cells are too small. So yeah, as soon as they're of any size, they will be planted out. Fun. And you know, just like with the garlic, it's a joy to be planting something today. Oh, I love it. I love the fact that the garden is never over. Well, I say that, it's never over for me here in my wonderfully mild climate. I know some of you have said you've had snow already. I'm talking to those in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. Of course, our friends down under are enjoying spring. Happy spring to you. By the way, no, I haven't forgotten to put the chilli in all of these. I just want to go and get a little teaspoon so that I don't put too much in and use up the whole packet on one cell. Right, my lovelies. So I think for now I'm going to say cheerio to you all. I've got a fair bit more to do today. So what I will probably do is bring that to you in the next video. Gorgeous morning. I'm warming up. Anyway, Vivi, shut up. I'll see you all again really soon, I hope. But in the meantime, please look after yourselves, look after each other, look after your garden if you're still able to get out there and enjoy it. Oh, I hope you are. For those of you who can't get out there and enjoy the garden, enjoy whatever mischief you're getting up to indoors. Bye for now, everyone. I need one more seed. You'll do.